The Azoth of the Philosopher's Meditation with Dennis William Houck. The Azoth of the Philosophers is a meditative emblem attributed to German alchemist Basil Valentine. The original drawing dates from the early 1400s, but it was kept hidden from the eyes of the church and shared only among alchemists for the next 200 years. It was not until 1659, at the height of the Renaissance, that the Azoth emblem finally appeared in a book published in Paris. The text of that book was based on an earlier work published in 1626 without the drawing, also attributed to Valentine. It was called Azoth, or the Way to the Hidden Gold of the Philosophers. It's not surprising that the original Azoth drawing was kept secret. The emblem is actually an alchemical mandala, used to transform consciousness by working through the operations of alchemy. The goal was to achieve divine perfection in union with God. Such spiritual practices were not allowed outside the church, and several alchemists, most notably Giordano Bruno, were burnt at the stake for even suggesting that people could experience the divine through private prayer and meditation in their own chambers. The word Azoth is an alchemical term first used in the ancient writings of Zosimus, Mary the Jewess, and Geber. It refers to the universal agent of transformation, which is capable of reducing anything to its primordial state and then perfecting it. The term is derived from the Arabic word for mercury. The first two letters in the word relate to the letters at the beginning and end of the three languages used by scholars of the time: Latin A to Z, Greek Alpha Omega, and Hebrew Aleph Tau. The connotation is that the Azoth contains and controls both the beginning and end of the great work, not just the chaotic first man at the beginning of the work, but also its perfected essence, the philosopher's stone, at the end. The circle at the center of the drawing, and if we look at that drawing now or study that drawing, we'll be referring to it periodically here. You'll see there at the center, which is like all mandalas, it's a circular form with a center point that is where the attention is focused during meditations. So there we see the face of a bearded alchemist at the beginning of the work, or the alpha point. Like looking into a mirror, this is where the alchemist focuses attention to begin the transformation. From the self-reflective point here, the alchemist begins the inner work and continues around the mandala through the spiritual operations depicted in the 7 numbered circles. At the end of the meditation, the omega point, the alchemist returns to the central circle, but this time focuses on the face contained within the downward pointing triangle, just that section of the face. The downward pointing triangle, superimposed over the face of the alchemist, is a cipher for the water element, which is used here as a symbol of divine grace pouring down from above. Within the boundary of the triangle, one can see the face of God, and the drawing clearly implies that the face of God and the face of the alchemist become one at the end of the work. Unfortunately, ideas like that were considered blasphemy, punishable by death in the Middle Ages. It was not until the late Renaissance, when the concept of the divine nature of human beings began to circulate openly, that the Azoth drawing could finally be published. Working with the Azoth in meditation is very straightforward, but first one needs to understand the complicated layout and meaning of the symbols used. The mandala shows the schematized body of an alchemist shown in perfect balance with the 4 elements, as depicted by his outstretched arms and legs. His feet protrude from behind the center emblem, 1 foot on earth and the other in water. In his right hand is a torch of fire, and in his left hand a feather symbolizing air. The alchemist also stands balanced between the masculine and feminine powers in the background. He is the offspring of the sacred marriage between Sol, the archetypal sun king seated on a lion on a hill to his right, and Luna, the archetypal moon queen seated on a great fish to his left. Its father is the sun, says the Emerald Tablet, its mother, the moon. The jovial, extroverted Sun King holds a scepter and a shield indicating his authority and strength over the rational, visible world. But the fiery dragon of the rejected contents of his unconscious waits in a cave beneath him, ready to attack should he grow too arrogant. The melancholy, introverted Moon Queen holds the reins of a great fish, symbolizing her acceptance and connection to those same unconscious forces that threaten the king. Behind her is a shaft of wheat, which stands for her relationship to fertility and growth. The bow and arrow she cradles in her left arm symbolizes the wounds of the heart and body she accepts as part of her existence. For feminine consciousness accepts the world as it is, with all its pain and suffering. In simplest terms, the king and queen represent the raw materials of our experience, those thoughts and feelings with which the alchemists work. The king symbolizes the power of thought and willpower, which are characteristics of spirit. The queen stands for the influence of feelings and emotions, which make up the chaotic energy of the soul. Their marriage produces a new intuitive state of consciousness that Egyptian alchemists refer to as intelligence of the heart. We continue to look at some of the symbology of the Azoth. We see that between the legs of the alchemist, at the level of the root chakra, is the cubic stone, which is labeled corpus, meaning body. The 5 stars surrounding it indicate that the physical body has a hidden fifth element, or quintessence, whose inherent strength is perfected if it is turned to earth, according to the Emerald Tablet. Where the head of the alchemist should be, there is a depiction of the winged solar disk, which symbolizes the ascended essence or personal quintessence manifested through the operations of spiritual alchemy. Touching the wings of the quintessence at the top are a salamander engulfed in flames on the left side of the drawing and a standing bird on the right. Below the salamander is the inscription anima, which means soul. Below the bird is the inscription spiritus, which means spirit. The salamander, a symbol of soul, is attracted to the blazing heat of the sun, while the white bird, a symbol of spirit, is attracted to the coolness of the moon. This is a visualization of the fundamental duality of energies that drive the universe. It is similar to the meaning of the Tai Chi symbol, which represents the interplay of the feminine yin and the masculine yang energies. Spiritus, anima, and corpus, spirit, soul, and body, form a large inverted triangle that stands behind the central emblem of the alchemist. Together they symbolize the 3 essentials, the triad of hidden forces within any created thing. The celestial archetypes the alchemist called sulfur, mercury, and salt. One continues the preparatory work now with the Azoth mandala. So what we're doing is learning to see the structure, learning to understand the symbols, and the energies depicted within the mandala itself. And we'll finally, when we complete that work, we'll be able to meditate on the mandala without going through any rational processes or anything, but just in a meditative state of mandala contemplation. So we continue this work through each of the alchemical operations depicted here. The star-shaped pattern that makes up the body of the alchemist represents the quintessence within, what Paracelsus called the starry man, the secret alchemical process going on in all souls. It is the same process behind the evolution of the anima mundi, or soul of the universe. So the first ray in this inner star is the black ray labeled number 1, clearly and pointing to the corpus stone. It represents the beginning of the ladder of the planets and is marked by the cipher that stands for both the metal lead and the planet Saturn. This is the archetypal situation at the beginning of the great work. The square symbol for salt is also shown in the first ray, which indicates that the work begins in the unredeemed matter of an imperfect carnation. It could represent any substance that needs to be perfected. Movement through the Azoth is clockwise, and between each step on this planetary ladder is a series of circles that show how to proceed to the next step or transform the current situation. These are the operations of alchemy. The first circle shows a black crow perching on the top of a skull. Next to the first circle, between the first and second rays, is the Latin word visita, which means to visit or start a journey. And that's what we're doing here. We're starting this meditative work. Black crows are a symbol of the initial black phase, the nigredo of alchemy, during which the subject transformation is purified by bringing it down into its essential ingredients. The scene in the circle represents the first operation of calcination, which works with the element fire to burn away dross and reveal hidden essences. That's the same in the laboratory, whether we're doing meditative work. The word calcination and such related words as calcify, calcium, are from the Latin root calx, which means limestone or bone. To calcine something is to burn it until it turns chalky white, reduce it to ashes, or cremate it. The skull in the first circle is the classic symbol of calcination. This first operation involves the destruction of ego and our attachments to material possessions. It is usually a natural humbling process as one grows older. But for the spiritual alchemist, this is an immediate and deliberate surrender of one's inherent hubris that proceeds by igniting the fire of intense introspection and self-evaluation and eliminating all that is false. The second ray in the star of the Azoth points towards the king, and the operation here is directed toward masculine consciousness. This is the second rung on the ladder of the planets and is marked with the symbol that stands for both the metal tin and the planet Jupiter. Second circle depicts the operation of dissolution and shows the black crow watching itself dissolve before its own eyes to reveal its white or pure part. Reflecting back from the pool of dissolution is the white image of the soul bird, which is exposed during this operation. This is still the black phase of alchemy, as the process of purification continues. In the outer ring next to the circle of dissolution is the word interiora, meaning the operation takes place in the innermost parts of our soul. Dissolution represents the breakdown of artificial structures of the sight by total immersion in the unconscious, the rejected part of consciousness. Within the alchemist, the dissolving emotional energy known as the waters of dissolution can take the form of dreams, voices, visions, strange feelings, woe and sorrow, regret. All those powerful emotions which reveal a less ordered and irrational world existing simultaneously with everyday life. During dissolution, the conscious mind lets go of control to allow the surfacing of buried material and bound up emotional energy. The third ray of the Azoth points towards the torch of fire and is marked with the cipher signifying both the metal iron and the planet Mars. This ray is also marked with a smaller symbol denoting sulfur. So iron and sulfur come together chemically in vitriol or sulfuric acid, the aggressive inviting liquid fire of the alchemist. The third circle shows the operation of separation, in which the black earthbound soul bird splits into two white birds now that retrieve the saved remains of the first two operations. This is the first coming together of soul and spirit, and the newly acquired elevation of consciousness allows discernment of what is worthy of being saved. Above this circle is written Terai, which means of the earth, and refers to the spiritual essences being separated out from the polluted dregs of one's everyday personality. The fourth ray of the Azoth points to the area at the top of the drawing where the right wing of the quintessence touches a salamander wallowing in flames. This ray is marked with a single symbol for both gold and the sun. The fourth circle depicts the twin birds of soul and spirit leaving the earth together, lifting a 5-spiked crown, which is the fifth element of quintessence, recovered from the preceding operations. That quintessence is who we really are, who we were born to be, or the very essence of the substance, whatever it is that we're working with, laboratory or meditative work. At this point in the work, only the purest and most genuine parts of the substance at hand will be transformed and remain in the vessel. The goal of this process, which is called conjunction, is to recombine these saved elements into a whole new physical incarnation. Its nurse is the earth, is what the Emerald Tablet says at this stage. Above the circle is inscribed the word rectificando, meaning by rectification, or setting things right, and the wings of the quintessence spread over this operation, as if to bless it. The alchemists often refer to this conjunction as the marriage of sun and moon, which symbolize the two opposing ways of knowing or experiencing the world. After this marriage in the mind, the initiate experiences the birth of intuitive insight, which produces a sense of reality superior either to thought or feeling alone. As can be seen in the Azoth drawing, conjunction is really a turning point from working with the first three operations below in matter or in the body or in the mind, and working with the last three operations above in the spirit or the ascended essence. Fifth ray of the Azoth points to the area where the left wing of the quintessence touches the standing bird of spirit. The ray is marked with a single symbol for both copper and Venus. The fifth circle is under the inscription Iwanis, which means you will discover. This is the operation of fermentation, in which the unexpected mystic substance forms, the ambrosia of the gods, which represents the first lasting solidification of the conjoining of soul and spirit. It's a condensing of energies into a purified substance, an actual body. The circle shows the soul and spirit birds nesting in a tree, brooding over their egg, waiting for the mystical birth to occur. Fermentation is the introduction of new life into the child of the conjunction, to completely change its characteristics, to completely raise it to a whole new level of being. The Emerald Tablet tells us to leave the earthly realm by the fire of imagination, gently and with great ingenuity, into a state that sets one's soul afire with a higher passion. Like natural fermentation, spiritual fermentation is a two-step process that begins with putrefaction, which the matter is allowed first to rot and decompose, and then to ferment or come to life again in spirit. You can see this process taking place in the making of a wine. In his work, Chemical Lustgarten, alchemist Daniel Storzius describes the importance of this uncomfortable phase. Destruction brings about the death of the material, but the spirit renews, like before, the life, provided that the seed is putrefied in the right soil. Otherwise all labor, work, and art will be in vain. The process appears most clearly in the making of wine. As I mentioned, the grapes are sacrificed or crushed to release their essence in the juice. Then putrefaction begins as the juice is allowed to decompose and rot. Next, a white layer of digesting bacteria rises that begins the process of actual fermentation. This phase also sometimes marked by a waxy substance the alchemists called the ferment, and an oily film known as the peacock's tail. Finally, new life force conquers the original identity of the grape juice and supplants it with a whole new and higher presence or life, a spirit of wine. This higher presence releases during the next operation, distillation, which produces the true purified spirit of the wine, its alcohol, which contains the purified spiritual essence of the grapes. This process is the death of the child of the conjunction, actually, that will eventually result in its resurrection to a whole new level of being. Out of the blackness of the alchemist's despair or putrefaction comes a brilliant display of colors and meaningful visions, which is the peacock's tail. Fermentation can be achieved through various activities that include intense prayer, intense desire for mystical union, breakdown of the personality through just life events and horrors and travails of just living deliberately in perhaps transpersonal therapy or psychedelic drugs or deep meditation. Personal fermentation is living inspiration from something totally beyond oneself. The Azoth 6-ray points to the feather, the symbol of air, and indicating the process of spiritualization. This ray is usually colored indigo, although it's shown as white or light gray sometimes too. The ray is marked with the cipher for the metal Mercury, or Quicksilver, and the planet Mercury, as well as an identical smaller symbol indicating the heavenly principle of Mercury. Distillation is the sixth of the major operations in alchemy and is represented in the sixth circle by a unicorn lying on the ground in front of a rose bush. According to legend, the unicorn runs tirelessly from pursuers, but lies meekly to the ground when approached by a virgin. The virgin is the purified matter at hand, which has returned to a state of innocence and potential. Above the circle is the word occultum, meaning secret or hidden, since the essences at the beginning of this stage are invisible. Distillation is a key process at all levels of alchemy. It involves releasing volatile essences from the prison in matter and condensing them in a purified form. Repeated distillation produces an extremely concentrated solution the alchemists called the mother of the stone. In a kind of distillation known as sublimation, the vapor condenses directly into a solid powder at the top of the distilling apparatus and remains fixed there. The Emerald Tablet describes distillation as it rises from earth to heaven and descends again to earth. On the personal level, distillation is the agitation and sublimation of psychic forces that is necessary to ensure that no impurities from the inflated ego or deeply submerged id are incorporated into the next and final stage. Personal distillation consists of a variety of introspective techniques to raise the content of the psyche to the highest level possible, free from sentimentality and emotions, cut off even from one's personal identity. Distillation is the purification of the unborn self, all that one truly and must be. In society, the distillation experience is expressed as science and objective experimentation. The seventh and final ray of the Azoth points to the realm of the queen and contains the symbol that stands for both the metal silver and the moon. It is at the feminine level of the soul where masculine consciousness is transformed. The seventh circle shows an androgynous youth emerging from an open grave, with the Latin word lapidum, meaning the stone, on the outer ring next to it. This is the operation of coagulation, in which the fermented child of the conjunction now fuses with the sublimated spiritual presence released during distillation. The resurrection of the soul is accomplished by bringing together only the purest essences of one's body and soul into the light of meditation or consciousness. In other words, coagulation incarnates and releases the ultimate materia of the soul that the Emerald Tablet described as the glory of the whole universe. At this stage, the alchemists felt they were working with the new or resurrected salt. On a spiritual level, coagulations for senses a new confidence that is beyond all things, though the same people experience it as a second body, others as golden light, coalesced energy, astral body, a permanent vehicle of consciousness that embodies the highest aspirations and evolution of the individual mind. Coagulation incarnates and releases the ultimate materia, what Paracelsus named the astral body, which the alchemists also referred to as the philosopher's stone, because using this magical stone, the alchemists believed they could exist on all levels of reality. So, knowing those symbols and what they mean, and it may take some time just working with this drawing on a personal level, just to say, I know this, what this means, I know what this means. And many of the symbols of alchemy are contained in this single drawing. Now, when we're ready to begin a meditation on the drawing, this is an eyes open, visual mandala type meditation. And we begin it by entering a relaxed state, an open state of consciousness, while staring directly at the face in the center of the mandala. Many alchemists actually replace the central image with a mirror, a small round mirror, to facilitate this introspective process. While staring at the center of the mandala, try to incorporate into your peripheral view all the alchemical images of the king and queen, spirit and soul that are present. Go slowly and intuitively and try to feel a sense of increased meaning and inspiration as you begin your journey through the operations. First, look at each ray in order, beginning with a black ray of calcination. Observe the symbols on the ray and its position on the star and man. Then move your attention clockwise to the circle explaining the operation to be performed here. Look at the scene depicted and try to get a feeling of actually being in the scene and witnessing what it depicts. Continue this way all around the mandala until you reach the final operation of a coagulation that shows the androgynous youth emerging from the grave. This is a clue for you to do the same in your meditation with the mandala. So sit back now and stare at the whole drawing. Try to break free of the salted person you have become. In other words, free yourself from the dead grave of the flat, square picture in which you have buried your consciousness in this meditation. Let your attention be free and see where it lands. In almost every case, you will be drawn to the black ray at position 1, which points to the cubic stone. This is the salt, or unpurified matter, at the beginning of the work, as well as the new salt, or stone, at the end of the work. Further meditation on the meaning of this 8th ray leads directly above this ray to the crowning sphere of conjunction. This is the operation that works with earth to manifest the new salt in material reality, a new body. But also the turning point between below and the above. In other words, the operation associated with the hidden 8th step is conjunction. It is the beginning and end of the work, coming together of the split duality in which we exist on all levels of body, mind, and spirit. Some alchemists felt so strongly about this that they actually changed the entire process to show the final step of transformation depicted by gold and the sun in ray number 4 instead of ray number 7, and that's how we see it here. In any drawing based on Basil Valentine's version that appeared in his Azoth of the Des Philosophes in 1659, The sun and its metal are shown in this ray of conjunction instead of at the final ray of coagulation, which is shown in some later drawings. This is an overwhelming confirmation of the importance of the ancient alchemical principle known as the law of the octave. Just as the 7 first notes in the musical scale lead to an 8th note that is a repetition of the first at a higher level of vibration, so do the 7 operations of alchemy lead to a return to the realm of matter at a higher frequency of consciousness. Stated differently, the goal of alchemy is not to remain in the realm of spirit, as it is in all the Abrahamic religions. Like Buddhist and Taoist doctrine, the goal is to become purified in the realm of spirit and then return to the earth as seeds of spirit or seeds of gold. The great work of alchemy is nothing less than the consecration of the whole universe, as the Emerald Tablet tells us. It is the coagulation of spirit in matter, the full awakening of the cosmic quintessence, the hidden spark of light and consciousness that carries humankind's true identity, but it's trapped in matter. That can only be accomplished by a second conjunction, a sacred marriage between soul and spirit that takes place on the cross of matter in the real world.